you have any questions, obviously maybe hold them to later in the presentation.
Yeah, actually the presentation is pretty quick.
Later will be soon.
So I like to do a little bit more of a Q&A because I'm curious about the audience and what questions you guys have. So I only have like 10 slides. I don't really like using too many slides. We're going to go through the presentation pretty quick. But I want you guys to kind of think of the questions of the products that you're working on. So you can ask me about those specifically because I think we'll use actual examples. The concept hits home more. So I'm just going to explain one quick concept here and then we can kind of continue. Just before I start, oh, can I just click through? Yeah. How many people have a product on the market currently? Just to raise a hand. Two. Okay. How many people are in the beta stage, so they're building out the product? Great. 8, 9. Okay. And then how many have an idea but haven't started yet? Or want to? Okay, cool. Great. That's good. Okay, so majority of this is perfectly timed class for you guys then. So one of the main things I want to talk about is simplicity. So for a little bit of a background on like who's giving you this information, he mentioned that I have he mentioned Collective earlier, Fueled. I have apps that are done like you mentioned north of $1 billion in terms of transactions. But I don't know even if you guys know what the Collective is. A handful. Just raise your hand if who knows what the Collective is. Yeah, cool. So let me give you a little context. So I opened up the space about 2 years ago in Soho just so that people could incubate their ideas out of the space. It's around 20,000 square feet and about 35 startups at any given point in time are in the space, and a lot of startups have operated their business there, have been bought out or grown out of the space, this being one of them. So that's a little bit of context on the Collective. Its full name is the Fueled Collective, and it's a collective group of startups at any given point in time that's building their idea in our space. Now, Fueled, I don't know, raise a hand who knew Fueled before they came in here? Handful of people. So Fueled is a company that focuses on helping entrepreneurs as a service to build their product, right? That's all we do. So someone has an idea, our goal and our entire mission is to take that idea and bring it to life, right? That's all we do all day long. We work on around 12 concurrent development projects at any given point in time, and around 6 design and around 15 in flux. So we have 30 active projects at any given point in time that we're working on to take from idea to on your own, right? That's our goal. So I like to give context of who's giving you advice, just because one of the things I tell people is be really wary of who you get advice from. I've seen founders in our space that are new founders giving who have run things into the ground several times, giving other people advice, and it like freaks me out a little bit. And so I just wanted to give you advice, like take everything I say with a grain of salt. Nothing is perfect. Use multiple people's data to kind of formulate some own direction that you're going to have. What I'm going to be talking today about specifically is one core concept, which is simplicity. And it's one of the biggest misconceptions that we see when we work with clients, which are entrepreneurs, when they come in to work with us. So I'm sure multiple times people have like kind of pounded into your head this idea of an MVP. Raise your hand. How many people know what an MVP is? Please, everyone, raise your hand. Okay. Okay, almost. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, MVP is minimum viable product. It was popularized by a guy named Eric Ries. The book. Anyone remember the book? The book was called The Lean Startup. Lean Startup. You guys should take a look at that. It's a great book. A lot of times when I talk about simplicity, a lot of people confuse it with the idea of what an MVP is. At the core, it's actually very different. An MVP wants you, and typically when someone builds out an MVP, they build out a specific feature set, they go on, they add more features to it, they go on, they add more features to it, they go on, they add more features to it. So it's a product that grows over time, but tries to get you to release early. One of the core concepts of MVP is releasing early and learning from your users. What I'm going to be telling you about now is not that at all. I'm going to be talking about simplicity, and the question is, well, what's the difference between your simplistic concept and this MVP concept? At the core, the concept is users are stupid. no, but this is like, it's actually kind of important. We're going to elaborate on that in a second. Users are stupid. We're not as sophisticated as you think we are from an interface standpoint. We're not ready for the interface that you think you want to give us as, and I'm saying us in the form of users. And with MVPs and what's been happening with MVPs is everyone thinks that all the features that they want to have are all core to the MVP, which means that, like, they need payment integration, they need X, Y, Z, and other features, and that is the minimal product. Trust me, there's 100 other things I can add, but this is what the MVP is. What I want to show you now is a couple interfaces, and like really hitting home what, like, how, like, kind of stupidly simple these apps were when they first started, and that was their actual MVP, and they pivoted in that own space where they had multiple stupidly simple ideas that they changed without an idea that they added more features to, that they added more features to, that they added more features to, and ended up being kind of a bigger build, right? What I want is an idea that doesn't work, and then another idea with just a couple features that doesn't work, another idea that's, again, stupidly simple, might not work, and then that idea that did work, and then you can build on it, right? So it's kind of a different graph than an MVP. So we kind of went through something dead simple. I just want to go through some examples. So this is Twitter's first interface. And I've actually never shown this slide before. I don't think I've ever done a talk with a slide deck. I always just kind of engage. But I really just wanted to show these interfaces because I felt like you guys would really understand what I mean by stupidly dead simple until I show you. So what you have here is how many people used Twitter when it was 40404? Like you texted a shortcode. No one? That's amazing. So I did all the time. That was the only way for you to use Twitter. This was it. This was the entire interface. This is now a multi-billion-dollar company that's public on the market. This is how it started. This is actually not only how it started, this is how it got popular, and there was over 100,000 users on it, probably north of 1 million users on it when the interface was just this. Now a lot of people can say, oh, well, Rameet, you know, apps weren't as popular back then. Apps were pretty popular. They came out with their app, and you know what? They didn't even build an app. They bought a company who had their most popular app built to be their API. So they built this, and they built an API, and they said, cool, that's all I'm going to do. Raise a hand on who knows Foursquare. Cool. Who used Foursquare when it looked like this? No one, right? I did. I loved it. It was MDOT. It was super cool. It was you could only access it from your phone through Safari, and it was m.foursquare.com. And if you even look, if you Google, so I got this image by searching just m.foursquare and like in a good search on Google, because I was like, I wonder where I can find a screenshot. And this is what the interface looked like. It was, I mean, it was a joke. It was kind of a joke. It was really simple. Does anyone know what dodgeball is or was? Raise your hand. 5 people, maybe a couple. So dodgeball was what what's his name? Dennis Carley built before he built Foursquare. And dodgeball was very similar to the previous interface that I just showed you, which was Twitter, because it was all only text. Like actually, there was no physical interface. This was its first physical interface, and it's kind of a joke. This is your feed at the top, and then if you wanted to check in, you would just click the bottom button. And I had another image of what that check-in looked like. If you could, it was hilarious. I mean, there was like nothing there. There was just nothing there. But he used this to test the concept. He had all of his friends using this app, and it was working, and it was sticky, and people loved it when it looked like this. The next one. So this is a bad. I couldn't find the image I wanted to find. Uber also started. Funny enough, well, it was called Uber Cab before. Uber also started as a text. It was a text. You texted and you wanted a car. And it was working, and like they saw that there was a need for it. Like just the people didn't want to talk to a human. Have you noticed that trend? Like all these services are there just so we don't have to talk to someone else because it's really annoying, right? So we have like Seamless, and like I just want to put my order in. I don't want to go to the grocery store. I don't want to even talk to the register person. They're going to deliver everything to me. You know, like drones are going to come. They're going to deliver it. But I don't even want to talk to the delivery guy anymore. Like all these things are there, so we don't have to talk to people. So even like this texting interface that they had before this was just so you didn't have to call the car service, because that interaction from calling was really annoying. So when you had to wait, you went on hold, like it was just super annoying. So first they had the texting interface, and then they enabled this. Now if you compare this to existing Uber, you'll actually see a lot of similarities, but it's really simple, right? It's It's cancel, log out, pick me up. That's it. That's all you can do. Right? And that's really all you need initially in a lot of these products. Is you just need something really almost stupid. I call it stupidly simple because you like literally don't want users to do anything else than the one core thing that you've decided that is the value prop that you're adding, and that's it. Like if they can click somewhere else, you've lost them. You give them two choices, don't do it. Like one green button, like this is all you want. This is like a bad example. It's Facebook. It looks like a lot, but it's actually pretty basic, and I kind of wanted to compare it to today's interface. And I'm actually going to come back to Facebook because it actually deals more with innovation and step twos. And guys, just a reminder, think of some questions because we're already halfway through the slide. So, ultimate question is, does it add value? So that's like probably the single most important thing in this whole deck. Is ultimate question, does it add value? So, at the end of the day, when you're building these out, you're either going to add value or not add value. I think that's pretty much it. Like it's not like maybe you add value. It's you're either going to add or you're not. It's super cut and dry. You need to figure out a product that adds value. You can do as much as you want to a product that doesn't add value, and you're going to fail eventually. You're just going to take longer to fail. You can fail a lot earlier, a lot faster, so that you can try something else out. Because that's a goal. The goal is like there's all these trends on like failing fast. Like this stems from that trend, right? Just do something. Question is really, do you add value? If you don't add value, fail. Great that you failed. You at least tested that. Tweak it a little bit, and then do it again. The thing is that there's typically something in that area. If you have a pain point in your life and you're solving that for that pain point, which is normally how entrepreneurs react, it's like an issue that they're not happy with. They have to jump through this loophole. They're like, I can make it so much simpler. Simplicity. So keep it simple. And I'm going to add value that way. So we have to see now if your opinion equals other people's opinion, and if they think that you're adding value too. But this is the key. It's the only thing that matters. If you deliver a ton of value, users will jump through whatever interface you give them. You saw what Foursquare looked like. It was not necessarily attractive, but it's not about an attractive interface. It's do you add value? A lot of people think that it's design, like, oh, well, it's a beautiful interface. I run a design agency, and I will tell you, design will not save your product. It won't. It won't. There's some products, because of what they are, they need to be designed good because of the target demo. But most of the time, if you're building like a social product or anything like that, designs don't matter. It can look super shitty. Like think about how many people have used Snapchat when it came out before. Whatever. So I mean, what do you think of the designs when it came out? When you were using it before? Do you think it would like just be?
It's very purple.
What?
Didn't have a lot.
Yeah. It's actually kind of shitty, right? And the thing is that it added some form of value. The question is, it's almost like purposely don't design something good so that you see if you add value. Because you actually almost don't want people to use your app because it looks pretty, because they're going to leave eventually anyways. So almost like give them a shitty interface, give them a shitty design, and just see if they use it. Like, do you really add value to their lives? Because that's all that matters. And all you're going to be doing is extracting that value, tapping a price to that value, monetizing it and growing, right? But you need some core concept. This is the 0 to 1 phase, right? So that's probably the most important thing. Success gives you the luxury of adding features. So this is really interesting. So I can go back to the slide now. So Facebook, success. Think about that. Success gives you the luxury of adding new features. Really interesting, right? So you have like these 3 features that you've built out, and it didn't work out. It didn't add value, so you pivoted. You dropped one of those features, and you added one different one, right? You didn't add 4 or 5, 10 features to it to try and make it work. You took something out, you added something in, you kept it dead simple. You kept doing that until you found something and started working. Once you're growing, and once more users are using your app, you are now allowed to, now in permission to make your app a little bit more complex, which is how it works, right? You can now do stuff with it, right? And there's a phase 2 to this, which is a whole different conversation. But initially, what I'm telling you is, as you get traction, I'm allowing you to add features. But up until you get traction, keep it dead simple. So why am I showing you Facebook's image? You guys mentally will know what Facebook looks like now. You sign in, what your feed looks like. There was no feed then, there was no timeline then, there was no apps then, there was nothing then. All it was just information on you and like a two-way connection between you and other people on the network, and that was it. Why are they able? Because now anyone can be like, oh, hey, Rameet, well, I was looking at Foursquare and you can do all this, and I need to build a social network, so I have to compete with Facebook. I keep saying Foursquare. I have to compete with Facebook, so I need to build an app that has all the features of Facebook and more. That's wrong, right? I mean, it's all obviously wrong. So it's only upon success do you have the luxury of adding features. It's only upon success that Uber has been able to add multiple different types of cars, search pricing, all these kind of crazy things that they've added. Uber Eats. Who's used Uber Eats? Cool. 1, 2. Great. It's not working. No, it's fine. Like they're testing it out, and it's okay. Like, if everyone started using it, then it's great. It says no one uses it, they'll ditch it and try something else. They're smart guys. And the last thing, this is kind of tricky. Innovation is required for retention. So this is why this is a crazy space we're in. And when I tell you this, you'll actually think of some examples of products that initially went viral and then didn't make it. You're like, oh well, what happened? Rameet, they were simple and it worked and everyone liked it and then everyone went away. What happened? So there's like a phase to this. So how it works is you build something initially. It's basic. You add value. You start to grow. You get a bunch of users, right? Now at this point so the odds. First of all, the odds that you actually come up with that idea are pretty slim. And then there's the chance that you execute it right is also slim. So the odds are like against you, right? But say that you actually figured it out, you got the idea, got your product launched, right? You got that growth. So you were one of the people that got the initial growth. The crazy part is you have to roll the dice again, right? So the odds were already against you, and now you actually made it happen. You're like, oh, happy day. No, just the beginning. So typically there's 3 phases to where you have to innovate your product, meaning you make a huge product decision, change the interface, change the offering, maybe whatever it may be, to continue growth. And that's what I'm kind of saying here is you're basically going to experience high churn in your product unless you innovate. And that also kind of parlays itself into what I was saying before, which is it gives you the luxury of adding new features. It not only gives you the luxury, it almost mandates that you do. So if you leave your product as is after you're being successful, remember this. If you leave it as is, you will no doubt experience a high churn. You need to do something once you hit that first growth curve in order to keep retention. So I threw Foursquare up here again because they're probably one of. So there's some companies that did this right, and I'm not trying to knock Foursquare in any way. There's some companies that did this right in the sense that you have to guess again and come up with a new version of your product. And think Snapchat stories being a very brilliant phase 2, right? And think of Discover as a phase 3. So like you keep adding a huge portion to your product. And I think they did phase 2 really well, which is stories. And it's questionable whether Discover was a success or not. And time will tell. But with Foursquare is an example of a product that got to 1 million users, and that phase 2 they didn't do correctly, right? I mean, in my opinion. And what happens is you hit this kind of stagnant phase where you're eventually just going to experience high churn, and you're eventually not going to be successful as a result of it. So you have to not only hit 1 level of success, not only 2, but typically 3. And these are the 3 different interfaces that they rolled out over time. So that's it. Those were all the slides. Questions? Do you want to pick?
Sure. She was first with the buzzer in the back.
Oh, sorry. Hi, I'm Monica.
I apologize for being fast.
You mentioned that innovation is necessary for retention, but I'm sure all of us haven't gotten from where you change the UI, you change color, you change something simple, and the whole community goes nuts and threatens to leave.
Yeah. Okay, so this goes back. Users don't know what they want. So, what's the famous Henry Ford? If I asked my customers what they want, I would end up with a car with a bunch of horses or something like that. I want a faster horse. They want a faster horse. But it's the same concept, right? So users typically know what they want. If you're not changing your product and like pissing a couple people off, you're probably not going to succeed. So you have to be very comfortable with it alienating and annoying a group of your users. I mean, like, there's ways to do it nicely. I'm not saying to be a dick about it. I'm just saying that it's inevitable, and it's actually a really good thing. So if you have people that are that passionate about your product, that when you change an interface, they're reacting negatively, like, that's great. Unfortunately, you will have to piss off some people. It's just part of it. Like, and a lot. I've actually met people. So we had a meeting with. I don't think this is private. I can tell you. It's fine. So do you guys know the most recent New York unicorn? It is. Who knows what a unicorn is? Guys, come on. So unicorn. It's typically a company that's reached $1 billion valuation within a 5 to 10 year period in the tech space. So we call them unicorns because they're hard to find, and investors kind of coined the phrase because they're always looking for the next unicorn, right? Because that's where they make their money. So the most recent unicorn is Kik. How many people know Kik? Messenger. Yeah. So they just got a bunch of investment from those Chinese guys. Yeah. Anyways, so they were in our office last week, and they're like, hey, we had this problem where they had a feature that people were using, and they didn't want it. They knew it didn't want they didn't want it in the product, but they didn't want to piss off a bunch of people. And we were like, listen, just like you have to. Same thing I told you. You have to. And they're like, well, there's a bunch of people that kind of their livelihood is based on a feature. And it was kind of like, oh, like that gets a little bit kind of crazier where they built their entire company off that one feature in that messaging app. If they killed that one feature, all those companies go under. And it's like, and then that gets a little tricky, right? At some point, and they're going to pull the trigger, but they're like just trying to let them know, and like give them advance notice because they know it's the right move. They still have to do it. So like even in states like that where it gets even trickier, you still have to make the right move. It's just maybe notifying them or finding a better way to do it. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Cool.
Hey, another good example of that is Facebook groups. A few years ago when they killed that, they killed a bunch. I don't know if it's groups or pages, like causes immediately had 10 million members in their groups or pages and just killed the company. That's Sean Parker's baby, by the way. After Facebook, their company was done after that. They're closing up shop.
Yeah. It happens. Sometimes you just have to do it.
But my question is about sign-in for payment type apps.
Sign-in for payment type apps.
Yeah, when you're asking for vital information from users, type them in the door, providing a valuable service. What is the most genius innovation that you guys have come up with to lower your drop-off rates during sign-in?
Great question. The most genius thing is don't have them sign in. Most genius. If possible. So there's really interesting stats on. So before, I don't think Apple's doing it anymore, but earlier, back in the day, they actually rejected apps. I think they might still, maybe you guys know. They rejected apps for not letting people play with the app without requiring a sign-in. And so I think what we love to do is let a user do a bunch of stuff in-app without signing in.
Just like the skip to browse.
Yeah, just like let them play around. And it's only when they're actually trying to do something that like obviously requires a sign-in, like pay someone, for example, or whatever. Like then it's like, well, cool, like I need like a name or something like that. I think Venmo was, who used Venmo back in the day? Anyone when it was text messaging? I guess really and really the message I'm trying to say is start off with text. Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I just realized it's like a consistent theme. Anyways, no, I think text messaging was a lot easier back then. But Venmo actually also started off with text messaging, and they did something really slick. You could just interact with payments without signing in. Like I could just send you money, and it just had a bot asking you questions. And it's like, oh, cool, I'll send, Aaron like $5, because you could just text them and be like, send this guy 5, send this phone number 5, or send a short code 5. And you'd be like, oh, cool, what's your name? And you'd be like, oh, my name's Rameet. Send. It's like, oh, cool, hey Rameet, what's going on? So to send them 5, I need like at least a credit card or like a bank. It was just like a conversation. And it was like a really interesting way to sign up, because it felt like I was like almost done. I was like one step away each time. I didn't get like this crazy form or something like that I would bounce from. It's just text. It's like I was having a conversation with a friend. And then all of a sudden, Aaron got my $5, and then Venmo had me in. I was a user. And I would just text that person, you know, and then they killed text. You know, but they did it because they had to, because it was unsecure and there's all these issues with it. But like, you don't worry about the issues initially. If they didn't have my social, I loved it because I used to like, this is being recorded, but yeah. You know where I'm going. Some of you do. Cool. Next question.
Actually, with Slack does that too. When they kind of start a conversation, you get all your.
It's great.
It's perfect.
It's great.
My question has to do with when you were talking about before about the MVP versus simplicity.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We're hosting a hackathon in a couple weeks,
Yeah.
and just for judging criteria,
Yeah.
I mean, it's so different than just a startup that you have 36, 48 hours to create something that just bare minimum.
Which is great. I love that. We do internal hackathons just to get our product team thinking about building things in 2
You can't
days.
get pure.
Yeah.
It's kind of thing. And, I don't know if it helps a little bit. It's coders versus cancer. It's female coders against breast cancer.
Cool.
But the way that the judging criteria is kind of a little up in the air still. We're trying to figure out. It's about viability to make sure that it's going to do something, but it's not something that's so. The thing you were saying before about like people don't come use it. This is kind of a reminder thing. It's an educational thing. It's like, hey, make sure you check yourself. So it's kind of hard. We're having a lot of trouble defining the criteria of what's going to be the most
You
successful.
want me to define the criteria of your hackathon? Is that what
I
you're
have no idea what I'm asking. But
Exactly.
It's just in your experience with hackathons,
Right.
what do you use to make sure you're picking the right thing that's going to actually have some life?
Yeah, so typically what we do is just pick good judges, right? Because at the end of the day, it's the question is it a viable product, and it's a subjective thing if the product's viable or not. Like someone might think it's viable, someone doesn't. It's the people that think, the people that are more accurate to guess that are typically people that build products in the past. And so, like my experience with hackathons, we're just sitting on panels where I'm just judging at demo day, and it's like, okay, that was really good. You're thinking about the problem and you attacked it in a very interesting way. Like you get extra points. You know, I don't know if that really answers your question, but pick good judges.
Yeah.
Cool. You're probably already doing that anyway. Sorry.
Like what you said is so true. I mean, like Google, right? You don't understand they were battling.
Speak a little louder. I want everyone to hear.
Well, like Google, right? They were battling with also this and Yahoo. Yahoo was like a portal, a bunch of like, a lot of things going on. You just have to write back to the search box. That's it.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. It's cool. I mean, that combats my point of like innovation is required, because Google's homepage is still just that, right? I mean, it's still.
But I mean, it's like
baller. That's baller.
crazy.
What?
Very crazy. So everyone was at the stand when they first launched. It was nothing. You had to offer this at the time. Yeah.
Right.
And they won.
Yeah, because it was a better product. What was your question?
No, I'm saying like what you're saying is so true.
Thank you. It's always good to get validation.
What about like I don't know if you remember Friendster?
Yeah.
They had they added a feature, and it was so revolted, which was the ability of if somebody visited your page, people would see.
Yeah.
And it became such a horrible that it literally destroyed.
Right. No, but you're taking risks, right?
Yeah.
At phase two of you adding features, did everyone hear that, by the way? He said that Friendster, which I've never used, I've used everything. Yeah, no text message features. So Friendster added a feature that users hated, which was you could see when someone visited your profile page. And then, like, theoretically, that could have been the feature that they killed the company. But the thing is, this whole thing is about taking risks, right? At the end of the day, like, you have to make decisions to evolve your product, and you might make the wrong decision. Actually, you're probable to make the wrong decision. It's more likely that you make the wrong than the right one.
Zach, I had a question about choosing the right dev shop or
Cool. Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of diligence and I've been trying to figure out the right firm and a price point. So I know that some small shops will charge for an app anywhere between $80 and $90. I know medium-sized shops
Hold on. You said the small shop will charge $80 or $90
per hour for development.
Oh, per hour.
So, yeah.
I was like, I am trouble. No wonder no one's calling you back.
Like 100, 220, and then I know that you guys are charging somewhere like north of 200 for most of your apps. So I'm wondering, how do I think about that in the context?
I'll tell you right now.
Where are the devs happening?
Do not. So the thing is, with raised venture, yeah, okay. Yeah, if you haven't raised venture, like, don't go to the shop like mine. It's a waste of money. If you've been if you've previously been successful, and you want, like, you're very like hard-headed on having like a really quality product, then sure, you can, like, if money's not that important. It's really a question of how easy is it for you to access capital. If cost of capital is really low and you can just access capital via some VCs or whatever, then it's actually worth it for a better product to go with a more expensive shop. If you have an idea and want to build it out, like I would like Eastern Europe, like I would go lower than 90. I would go super cheap. I would go super cheap and know that what you're hiring is like execution of an idea, but not zero product. Okay, so let me just quickly describe this. So there's 3 pillars. There's design, there's development, and there's product. This is huge. This is the most important thing. You can have a shitty development, you have shitty design. What matters is that your product is good, right? You as a CEO, or as an acting CEO, you are the person that makes a product decision, right? And you can hire a cheap firm, and the cheap firm will, they'll execute it from a dev standpoint and from a design standpoint. And like we've shown you, the designs don't need to be good. The development actually doesn't need to be good. It doesn't need to be good. I think it's preferable for things to run smoothly so people don't get pissed off. But it doesn't need to. It's not a critical fact. Once you see that you're adding value and you're scaling, then your tech needs to be good because it has to scale. So you have to rebuild. Then you can typically get investors' capital, and then come to a shop that's more expensive and spend your money, right? And then additionally, the reason why people come to us at the beginning is if they are not that good from a product standpoint. So one of the core things in terms of our differentiator from a person that's like 100 an hour, 120 an hour, is product. At the end of the day, it's like we have so much experience building tech products, whereas a lot of agencies have experience just building like campaigns or just things that work. And it's design and development for them. It's design development. For us, it's design development of product. It's a massive difference. And so we know that people don't come to us and like explicitly pay for product, and that's actually why our prices are higher. We give it to them without them asking for it because we know they need it. And as a result, like our prices normally it would be around 150, 175. Our price right now is I think at like 208 an hour because we don't charge for a product, but we know they need it in order to be successful. But no one wants to pay for it, so we don't bill for it. Yeah. So that's a little context. I would go super cheap. Like you're gonna throw away no matter what you do, your first version is gonna get thrown away. Like, no matter what you do, I don't care who you are, the first version is gonna get thrown away. So like throw away less money. Anyone else? I know you were trying to ask a question before.
Oh yeah, just a simple question on Facebook and MySpace. And
right.
How, if you had any insight on how MySpace tripped up when Facebook went from just being a college application to social media, and where Facebook kind of went wrong in their execution.
Yeah. Where Facebook went wrong?
More of MySpace.
Okay. I was like, yeah. So to answer your question, so like it's not one thing, right? It's multiple. A lot of people also associate apps being successful to one thing. It's like it's not one thing. It's a ton of different things that led to anything being particularly successful or even big. Between MySpace and Facebook, everyone knows that MySpace was out first. There was actually multiple social networks that were out before Facebook. Like I said before, product. Like if your product is significantly better, it's like having Apple end up winning against Windows. It's the exact same thing. It's just a significantly better product. If you can sustain a significantly better product, whether it's a physical product or a technology product, you'll eventually win, right? Because you'll have experience low to zero churn, and you'll always be acquiring new users. You don't even need to market per se because you will be marketing it. And for people, and you're always going to be taking someone else's market share. And it doesn't matter who that other person is, but as long as you have the spread in terms of how good your product is. So there's a famous Steve Jobs speech. I don't know if anyone's seen it, where it's a room. Everyone, I'll keep asking this question for everyone else, so I'm just gonna stop now. Apple does this conference once a year. It's called WWDC. It's all the developers that come out to SAP to hear what's going on with Apple's development product. So Apple was doing this in the 90s too. Apple's development platform wasn't as popular, but still had a development community, and they all came to see like them talk about what the new features were for the platform. Now, of course, the platform was like 1% of the market, and Windows was pretty much the air that you breathe. And so it was kind of a crazy like space to be in. Like, why would you develop on Mac if you had no users that were using the applications on Mac? It's kind of a crazy thing. But so Jobs comes out from the audience and he's like, hey guys, and it was just after the acquisition, I think, so he just came back to Apple. So everyone was excited to see him, but one of the developers got up and they said, hey, Jobs, why don't you do something different? Like, like you're just, you're building the computers the same, like it's just the same TV thing, like what is your product gonna have that the other products don't have? Like, are you gonna differentiate yourself? Like, what are the plans? Like, I want to get excited about Mac. And he's like, actually, no, I'm not gonna do anything different. I'm just gonna make my product significantly better than what's out there. I'm not actually gonna change. It's not gonna be a feature difference. It's just gonna be that much better. And like, it's so funny to think about now when you look at like, or you talk to someone that's like on a Windows machine. It's like harder to find now, but before. Sorry, I'm a big Apple fan, but they're like, well, what's the difference? You're looking at the two, you don't see that much, but they have such a bigger audience now, right? And the reason it's just a significantly better product. There's not like feature difference. They go with keyboards, laptops, screens. It's the same setup. Just significantly better. Same thing with like iPhone, Android. Just a quick poll: how many people have iPhones in the room? Cool. So I think it's the question with the largest answer. And then Android. Well, the Android guys are more proud. I am on Android. It's really funny to see that. Cool. Best of luck. Anyone else?
That's cool. I'm sure you still fail a lot, like we all do.
Yeah, well, all the time.
What was like the last failure that you had that led to a learning moment that probably saved
That's a
you
great question.
3 or 6 months of failing in the same way you were failing?
All right, hold on. Let me take out my phone. That's a great question. That is a great question. I'm looking at my phone to look at apps that I think I've used recently or downloaded or made.
I thought maybe you had like a failed journal in there. Like, what was the last one?
Look at my fail journal. Yeah, so I'd say most recently we built an app called Cluster. We had issues with so much stuff. Actually, a better one. We were doing something for a charity recently, and we realized that Apple has crazy rules with charities. That was like a big learning.
21.1 and 21.2.
Yeah. That came up in the meeting. We still in an app, the charity app.
I know what app you're talking about.
Yeah.
And you're lucky right now until it gets kicked.
It's gonna get kicked out.
So
I told her.
So lucky.
I don't know how it's in there.
You're lucky.
I'm really lucky. Yeah. As soon as it gets big, it'll get kicked out. She already knows. I'm like, listen, it's not gonna last. So that was one last thing. Location. People are really weird about location. It's really sensitive as to how you surface it, when you surface it, all that stuff. Well, we've learned so many things about like working with third-party providers that are really relevant to you guys. A lot of my learnings, my personal learnings these days are around running businesses. I'm trying to think what else. You were asking payment before. I'm trying to think of recent payments that we've done.
Well, you're probably coming up with a workaround for the charity app, I'm guessing.
We've already petitioned something for a different client with the team. Luckily, I'm friends with the review team, so we have like a close relationship. So I just put them on the phone. My team are like trying to come up with something that will still work. There's always like a route. The question is like, is it desirable? And like again, my stance is people will jump through hoops if you're adding value. So like do that now to see if it works, just to see if the product works. And then if it does, then you can like worry about experience better over time. One of the interesting things that we recently got through to the store, which we didn't think was gambling. So we successfully got a gambling app into the store 2 or 3 days ago via help with the review team. Yeah, turns out you're allowed to do it. There's a bunch of rules around it. You just got to spend a bunch on legal and like get a bunch of opinion letters from lawyers and stuff. But if you do it, it's good. maybe we can have a gambling app.
Yeah, so you said when you have an idea and you don't go to the expensive people, you go to the cheap people first.
I would do that first. If you've never validated your idea, I mean,
what about getting advice from you guys?
Oh, I'm sorry?
Getting advice from you guys means I go to the cheap people overseas. Now they built my app in a cheap platform with the terrible database, and now I got the group. And now, then what I do? Then I come to you. You be like, Sakib, you have a horrible platform. You have horrible database.
You have to rebuild. But typically, well, I'm sorry.
You have to rebuild everything again.
Normally, yeah. If you go into it knowing like you're getting a benefit on cost, but if you succeed, you're gonna have to rebuild.
But if I already know that I should have my backend service on Node.js, I should use a MongoDB database, so I can tell those cheap people to use these databases.
Oh, so very, very true. So from a platform standpoint, you could stay on the same platform. So in theory, you wouldn't have to rebuild. But what I'm talking about is the code and the code quality. Typically, if you get a good engineer on something that anyone that in a low-cost arena has built, they won't work with that code base.
I got my first app on Microsoft Access. We got 800 customers now on Microsoft Access. They don't know it's running Microsoft Office in the computer. But now, legally I cannot because I have to install the Microsoft Access in the computer, which is legal Microsoft Access, and then I have to give them application and they run it and they pay me for it. Question it is now, I want to make it in .NET or some web application. But then I have this 800 user already sitting with their data over there sitting, and now the database, the way the database is designed, we're not putting a data right. And now you come in the picture, you design very nice database, but you say, hey, I cannot move this because this is trash here.
No, but you can move the data. It's fine.
Sure.
You can sort the data. And maybe I'm missing your question, but why can't you? Why can't you? You can move the data. It's easy to move the data.
Because who designed the database did not design properly. It's like terribly structured.
So maybe some fields will be missing. Even though it was poor. What's your overarching question now?
My question is this. When you start the app, should you get the advice from better people or from you guys even? Do you guys give advice like, I have an idea.
Right.
Maybe I could come to you guys and say, okay, at one point I'm going to come to you guys to build a better product. For now I'm going to these cheap people overseas. What do I use?
Yeah, 100%. So we take typically 1 to 2 meetings with every entrepreneur and give them as much advice as we could possibly give them in those sessions. And then we have to cut it. So just so you can understand how much that actually is, we get around 120 requests per week to meet with entrepreneurs to talk about ideas, and we take all the meetings. We only have capacity to kick off 1 project a week, so it's less than 1% that we'll actually take on. But we take all the meetings. Like I have an entire team that's only dedicated to giving advice, and those people are super expensive. Like Aaron Cohen's on that team. He's a 3-time founder, raised a ton of venture capital, owns like a piece of Meerkat, and he's like a really amazing guy. Actually, he's one of our venture directors too. He takes third, but about a fifth of the meeting. Ryan Cohen, Ryan Maxner, which is our lead strategist, takes a fifth of the meeting. We have 5 people. We split up the leads amongst them. It's like all really good people that are taking meetings, and we're being very frank with our advice. But to answer your question, yes. Chat with someone, get advice, do it. You're still going to have to rebuild. I guarantee you. You will not get away with not rebuilding. And you should rebuild. It's like not that much. Once you figured something out. Capital will be cheap. If you actually figure something out, it's easy to get investment. And if it's easy to get investment, then like, who cares? Just rebuild. It'll take 2 months to rebuild. Not a big deal.
Pretty easy question, but
Thank you.
Should you separate product from content?
Should you separate product from content?
And if so,
elaborate. I thought it was easy. Elaborate.
So let's say that a company is very focused on the content they create.
They're focused on content.
Educational reasons.
Okay, so you're putting lessons together.
Executing that content, knowing how to build a product around that content, which should be the driving force, the product or the content.
Yeah, it depends on your mission. So you are either going to be a tech company and differentiate yourself in terms of your product itself, or you're solely going to differentiate yourself in terms of content. I would say start off with content differentiation, just because you'll be able to see if you're actually different and people actually like your content. Because product takes a lot of time and money, right? Where content, not that content doesn't take time and money, but it's your core anyways. So you might as well just create that content, but use a third-party application to host and scale that content. Once you get validated that people are actually enjoying that content, then start to build custom tech features around it. I wouldn't build that tech initially. When people have ideas that are content focused and come to us, we tell them to build a blog. Like just build it, the tools are there, build it. Pick one of the content platforms that allows you to disseminate content, get traction, then you can build something custom. And a lot of things you can build custom on top of some of these platforms. Like if you're on WordPress, it's like a lot of fun stuff. Does that answer the question? I just want to make sure.
I think so. I mean,
elaborate.
I guess my question is, let's say you have a company, you know the content is very valuable.
Cool.
You already have a great audience, you're growing.
Great.
At that point, do you want to separate the product from the content?
Define separate.
Different people focus on content from different people who focus on
within the organization, for sure. 100%. The people, they should chat with each other, without a doubt. But typically, people that focus on product are solely focused on really making an amazing product itself. They're an expert on product, right? Whereas your educational content, it's a whole different arena, right? And someone that's creating the curriculums and all this stuff is just doing something totally different. Can inform product, and they should chat, like I was saying. Like requirements should be shared, but one person should be in charge of the overall experience of building the product. And if you already have validation in terms of your content, biggest, like every company in today's world is a tech company as well, and that is one of the biggest differentiators. So definitely focus on product, but I would keep it simple.
Speaking of your, going back to your text-based service. Going back to your text-based service. I remember like
My shirt says hi.
That's what it's like, hi. Going back to your text-based service. I remember like a couple of years before smartphone used to text Facebook stats on my phone. Whatever the number was.
Right.
You know? And now actually, I discovered global background.
Yeah.
And I just like got confirmation. Yesterday, I just like.
Did you like the website?
I did.
We built it.
I like it a lot. Yeah. Very user-friendly.
Sorry, go back to your question.
No, I'm just saying, there's no questions to state, like, you know, like, I just like text-based, like, even still now,
yeah, 100%. Magic, Go Butler, all these guys are still using text. It's the issue for the difference. Text is great. Again, I'm gonna reword. I'm actually doing another presentation. I'm gonna reword it. Like text is the future. No one will ask me to do it properly.
They say they want to come out with an app, though.
What?
They say they want to come out with an app, though.
Of course, they're talking to us about it. Yeah. They're wild. Go Butler, the German guys.
Yeah.
I'm just curious to know where you stand and if you can speak about like in-app ads or just ads.
I'm really bad with advertising. Sorry.
Versus like a clean UI and a paid app.
I'm sorry. Versus a clean UI and what?
And a paid app.
Oh, okay. So just advertising in the form of a revenue model as opposed to a paid app. So there's a couple things. It's kind of widely accepted now that you can get more users for obvious reasons if you're free. But with more of like an in-app purchase. So instead of thinking about iAds versus paid app, think free app with in-app purchase. Now, I always lean towards free app with an in-app purchase as opposed to advertising, because the numbers, like how advertising works, so many people have gamed the system at this point now in terms of click-through rates and all that stuff, that they've driven the cost per thousand down because everyone's generating so many pages online or pages on an app that they devalue it, and they're optimizing for that. Like if anyone goes to like a slideshow on like Business Insider, it's like each time you press it, or you ever see like it refreshes the page. They're just trying to get 10. Yeah, they're just trying to get 10 page views out of one article, right? So everyone's, which is fine, and you can shake your head, but it's fine. Like, you know, whatever. Someone came up with that and they made more money. Like, yeah, it's fine. The thing is, because of that, it drove the prices down, right? For cost per thousand, because everyone's gaming it, so everyone has like larger numbers. So eventually, the advertisers just pay less. And so for people that are actually doing it like correctly or not trying to take advantage, you're at a huge disadvantage. You're not going to make that much money. You really have to take advantage. And so content's the best. Because content, people are looking at content, going to the next thing, looking at content, going to the next thing. And it's like, if you go to multiple pages, there's all this stuff. So it's really geared towards content. Like ads work well, better on content, because it's just, you can come back, do more content, all that stuff. I think what I always lean towards is at the point of adding value, charge users. So I don't necessarily believe in things that are free anyways. I think users in general will pay for something that adds value to their life. And so at that point, charge them for it. So it really depends on what your product is, but I would lean towards in-app purchase unless you're doing some content thing where you really can get like millions of views, pages. Cool.
I have like a couple of questions in the space basically on investments. For example, number one, you said you accept maybe 1% of the people that.
Unfortunately, yeah. Okay. I wanted to accept more.
Yeah. Okay. So is it the case that sometimes you guys?
Most of the time they don't have the money. 50%.
Say that again.
Sorry to cut you off, but 50% use of data don't have enough cash to hire savings. They don't have capital.
Okay, so it's the case that you accept a certain amount of equity when you partner up?
That's a great question.
Okay, and my second follow-up to that, in terms of investing, you were saying creating that product, focusing on one idea and scaling it. Is it the case that a lot of investors are expecting to see your product have a certain presentation value? Even though you may monetize your product, they're still expecting it to have a certain glitz factor.
Okay. I'm going to try and answer that. I'm going to go with the first one first. It's easy. So your first question was, do we partner? So we actually have a separate division of the company, which is called Fuel Ventures. And what that does is it does invest capital into startups. But it is separate, right? So we will take partnerships, and it's easy to get an intro into that. And there is a correlation between the companies we invest in and the companies we work with. But we look at it as a separate transaction. If we want to invest in a company, we're going to take money, capital from Fuel Ventures, and give it to you. But from a consulting standpoint, we're going to charge you the same rate. Now, effectively, it's lower, right? Effectively, you're going to charge less because we gave you part of the capital, but you have to give it back to us in the form of consulting at our normal rate. If that makes sense. A little bit. Basically, we have a venture arm that does invest in startups, some of which we're working with, some of which we're not working with. And that does, in effect, lower the rate, and that does turn us into a partner. Cool. Second question, do you need to have a glitz factor in your app? Tell me more about it.
No, well, I understand what you were saying earlier, concentrate on the value that you're adding.
Oh, yeah, value.
But in terms of investors, I just, even in terms of the typical user, these days they expect a certain presentation when they go to
design. When you say presentation
design, yes. And so, if that's the case for the end user, I'm thinking in terms of someone who's putting good money into your product, they're also expecting it to look a certain way. I mean,
so investors are super savvy, and this is a big confession. Their job is to like review, determine if you are potentially going to be the next unicorn, and then give you money or not give you money. Like they're not like analyzing the designs. I'll tell you right now. I don't care. Like sure, your deck looks good, it just looks better on you a little bit, but it's not gonna move the needle too much in terms of their decision. It does look good to have good designs. It shows you poured some money into it, or you have someone on your team that does good design. But they also know that that's not going to lead to a successful product. At the end of the day, like if your product's already launched, they want to see a growth curve. It's also dangerous, right? This is also one thing that's interesting about raising money. If you raise money post-launch, it's scary because investors just want to see something where the growth curve's already going up, right? Or they'll just hang out. They'll just be like, cool, I'll chip in a week. You know, like, oh, you're launching this new feature? Great. Let's chat after you launch this feature. Let's see what happens. And from their perspective, they're just going to wait until you potentially have a high growth curve, right? And then let you take that risk until it happens. As soon as that does happen, they know you're going to reach out to them. It's like, oh my God, look, it's going up. Like, give me cash. I'm like, okay, fine. Now we need some cash. Also, all investors work on like I'm scared that I might miss the next year. It's crazy. Just look up venture math, like in general, like how venture math works. Basically, these guys are just scared that they're going to miss the next Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Uber, right? So like if you can put yourself in a position where they feel like they're missing out on a deal. Like, hey, I got, it's a little bit of bluffing, a little bit of like, that's not rich guys. Where it's like, oh, you only got 50K left, I think I'm going to close with these guys, people get in, it's fine. Like, you have to be super nonchalant about it. It's like dating, it's like the same thing. I don't know if that answers your question, but it's okay. Sorry. One and two. It's everything.
So let's imagine that you lose all your money in the gambling app you just made.
Okay, I lose all my money. Yeah. Yeah.
And they fire the hell out of you.
Yeah, cool, fired.
Now you want to have the revenge.
Right. Who do I want revenge against?
People who fired you.
The people that fired you, okay? Right.
What, in practice, is how you're going to become the king of that again? No one can do that.
Yeah. So I wouldn't become the king of apps, plural. I'd become the king of one app.
Yeah, I want to become the
Right. So I'm just. I would not start a consultancy again, because consultancy is like really hard work consistently. There's like the reason I started it is like probable of success. Like I can make sure that I'm at a certain level of success with a high level of certainty, as opposed to with a product, you're either going to hit it home, like way out there, or you're going to fail. And so there's a lower probability of success with the ultimate success being all or nothing, right? So this is more of like a mitigated risk kind of startup like consultancy. Like you're always theoretically making something. I wouldn't do that. So I'd let the consulting run. I built an app. I'm sure I could build an app. Right now, if I had to pick one thing, it'd be co-living. If I had to pick like one arena, it's not necessarily an app, it's really a technology component to it, but it'd be physical spaces. I just think there's a monster market waiting to be untapped. There's a couple companies in the last year that have got into it, but no one's hit it yet. There's a lot of companies. There's a lot of money going into it right now, which is like unfortunate. It's like in this case, I wish I was fired a year ago, so I could have got a head start. Because for the last year, that's probably what if I got fired. By the way, contacts, I can't get fired. But if it somehow happened, that's what I would do. No, I would raise capital. Always use someone else's money. Whenever possible. Like, there's no point. There's enough money out there. Just use someone else's capital. People's job is to give people money. So just use their money. It's really simple. And I'd raise a bunch of money. I'd get some real estate partners. I'd start building out physical spaces that look like dorms or else. I know it sounds weird, but trust me, it's not. It always sounds weird. If your idea doesn't sound weird, then like something's off.
I'm completely new to the mobile app world, so I apologize to everyone in the room.
You're not new. If you use an app, you're not. You have an iPhone?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
So sorry if my question's a little simple, but it seems to me that from an outsider's perspective, the app business is already pretty well developed. There's over 1 million apps or whatever, and a lot of the best apps are being developed by these teams that are venture-backed or whatever. How can an individual entrepreneur, such as ourselves in this room, how can we have a chance to succeed?
So it's a highly competitive market. So there's no question about it. It's super risky. I don't want to sugarcoat it, right? Odds are you're going to fail. Those are the odds. Right? Odds are you're going to fail. So first you have to kind of accept that you're picking a field that's. I mean, just to give you an idea, this field is crazy. So you have. I don't want to scare you, but I'm allowed to say that. So. Yeah. How much time do I have, just so I know?
You have like 3 hours.
Yeah, I have dinner.
So another 15 minutes.
Cool. What time is it? Get that back. Half hour. So to answer the question, just what do you have on the way to describe this to you would be, again, I don't mean it's scary, but one way you just kind of understand the concept of how crazy this is. There's so many different analogies I can use here. So I'll explain one level from an investment standpoint. So you guys can understand how risky this whole space is in general. You're allowed to generally invest in public equity. Everyone knows that, right? Stock market. If you wanted to buy a stock, you can go buy a stock. There's no regulations around that. The reason there's no regulations for you is there's regulations on the company side for a reporting perspective, right? So they have the SEC to report to, it's public. So they basically say an uninformed investor can invest in equity. Now, equity is the riskiest, close to the riskiest thing that you can invest in, normally without extra paperwork, right? If you want to do margin accounts and option trading, all that stuff, you have paperwork. So, and they also recommend that you do not invest in equity in general. Investment theories say you should invest in mutual funds or ETFs that you have to pay for, right? And for those who don't know what that is, it's just a group of investments that you have to invest directly in one individual equity, right? So like I'm like kind of making this tier structure, right? You have super like bonds and then ETFs, which are derivatives of equity investments. You have equity investments in terms of risk. It's all level of risk, right? I'll actually change it. So you have that on the bottom, and it's kind of going up. Equities. So bonds is like fixed income stuff, super low risk, all this stuff kind of coming up. You have real estate somewhere in there. You then, in terms of investment, you have private equity tier, which is the largest kind of largest check size investment. They take over companies. They have different types, distressed, non-distressed. And then you have series investments. So you have series like late series like F, E, D, right? And these are like larger checks too, but typically smaller than private equity. And there's a lot of overlap between the later stage series investments and private equity firms. And then you have Series C, Series B, which is very risky. Series A, which is considered the riskiest class that's out there. To even invest in Series A investment, you have to declare that you are an accredited investor. You have a certain network of backs. Anyone can't just invest in Series A investment. You really have to, and there's no. It's funny because there's no body that will check to make sure that you are accredited. You have to self-declare that you're accredited. But the government just wants to make sure that you're basically know what you're getting into. Like you're telling whatever, you're lying then if you fill out this form and say you're not accredited. And if you lie, then that's your fault, right? And then there's this other level. It's called seed or angel investment, right? So seed, it's beyond the series. It's so risky. It's insane risk, right? And like when you're early stage and starting a company, like that's the level of risk that you're at. It's highly risky stuff. So again, like repeat your question because I want to make sure like how do you compete in this day and age?
More specifically, I was thinking like kind of a couple steps ahead. Let's say I develop a great app and I get it on the store, right? And I'm trying to get users or whatever. Right. But meanwhile, a company with much larger resources discovers my app and says, "Oh wow, this is a really great idea. We should do this too." And then they copy the app or make it better and come out with a better app.
There's two things there. So you have two different types of incumbents. You have the incumbents from a larger corporation with more resources, and you have incumbents from another startup with more resources. Those are your two typical types of incumbents. The one that you're generally not concerned with is a larger company. Funny enough, there is like if you had to map out like things that could go wrong, right? Large companies could take pivots, and that small pivot, which would barely affect the company, could kill your company, right? There's a chance. It's a slim shot. That's not what you're generally worried about. Chance of that happening is like less than 10%, right? So you're actually not too concerned with that. Big companies are like massive ships. I'm sure you've heard these analogies before. They can't turn, pivot, or move fast. I know that's a saying. It's so true. They can't move as fast as you. Your advantage is the fact that you're nimble, right? It's the fact that from day 1 to day 2 to day 3, you can have a completely different product. Like it's insane. They can't do that. They have to go through levels of approval. Like it's insane. It takes months, right? You can do in a week what takes them a year. They're just not structured to do that. So you have a huge advantage over the large corporations. The only thing that why I'm saying it's still relevant is because sometimes they can just pivot slightly, which eradicates your market, which is dangerous. But it doesn't happen at all. So larger incumbents, you're not worried about. Who are you worried about? Other venture-backed startups. Yes, those are, and it's not even the people that are doing exactly what you want to do. It's the people that are doing close to what you want to do that could pivot into what you want to do. That's who you're scared of, but that's part of the game. So there's a chance, probability that they might pivot into it, they may not. A lot of people are like, this is why. What I would do is you had an idea and like there's a couple of people in the space, somehow get in front of either a very senior advisor or the founder or someone senior at the company and just find out what the future vision is, because typically they're going to move around their future vision. Like they're going to play around in the space, like tweak the product, but the vision typically stays the same. There's not a broad change to the vision. The vision stays the same, it's just how do we solve for that problem. So we're going to change our product until we're actually solving for that problem. So if they have the same exact vision as you, it's an issue. Like they are competition, so you have to be wary of that. But it's fine. Like there's always room for typically two in a space at least. You just change your product slightly, like cloud storage, you Dropbox and Box, and one is like a bottom-up strategy where you get a lot of consumers on your platform, and one's a top-down where you sell products, right? And they both live very happily in the space of both worth over $1 million each, and it's just cloud storage. So same kind of theory around cloud storage, but one is more enterprise solution, one is more. So there's always room to play with, right? Co-living, like WeWork's going to do it, and WeWork's going to win. Like one of the companies that, like, they'll be one of the 5 companies that succeeds in co-living, I think. What?
Crash.
So I don't think Crash is going to succeed personally. I think Common has a chance to succeed, but there's like all these others. So you have like that there's smart people in the space, but you might have a different take on it. You might have a different vision, and then really at the end of the day, it's the vision, right? So like it depends what. Like I haven't spoken to Brad recently about what he's planning to do with Common, but I have a feeling like his vision is probably going to slow mine, which is why I'd be worried about going into the space, because he's a well-funded, smart founder that has already raised like millions of dollars for the annual. You can do it too, but then like a lot of times like you want to build an idea because it doesn't exist. And if someone's able to execute that on a good level, if you're happy or unhappy with it, like there's someone else taking care of it, it's like great, I don't have to build that. I'll build something else that doesn't exist. Almost.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Speaking of a pivot, what are your thoughts on? I was on a conference call with Amazon today, so I texted them for alcohol in 2 hours. But minibar. What are your thoughts on minibar now with Amazon coming into play?
Yeah, I mean, so it's hard, right? Like I said before, sometimes larger companies will always take this, and it's always a risk. Some people, you just like it's time to switch up your product a little bit. It's time for like that phase 2, phase 3 of like what else you can offer. It's going to be a show and like, I don't know. I'm just saying like Amazon could never do
Uber Eats in a 6-pack.
I'm not saying that loud.
Minibar does have the order of bartender.
Yeah, so like bartender service, they have all these like ancillary services which they can focus on their product to make their product significantly better than what the corporation can do. And the company can only deliver it to you fast. And there might be a segment of the market which is I just need alcohol quickly. I don't care how it comes, whatever, I just want it fast. And there's another segment of the market that's like I need everything, I need the whole suite. And that's a large enough addressable market that they can make this unique and relevant product.
So I guess we have the Apple. Do you see a lot of developers very interested or not? And
yeah, it's like whenever that first piece of technology comes out, it's like I have it because like I'm obviously in the space, so like I want to see what's going on with it. I mean, it adds a little bit of value to my life right now, specifically around tech. Different. There's enough use cases that it can add value to multiple people in different ways. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be like it always. The way to think about it is devices in your pocket. Devices on the web were always accessible. Devices in your pocket were always on. So it's like you get push notifications, but you can't necessarily do it there. Devices on your wrists are always, in theory, always visible. And so that's a whole new classification of the way you think about a product. It's always visible. And so there will be a lot of stuff around that. This is just one form factor right now, which is always visible. Is right now the only thing we can do is put on your wrist. In the future, always visible will actually be always visible. So we won't have a watch anymore for something like that unless we're doing like something else that's likely that the wearable won't be necessarily visible, even like you might be wearing it somewhere else. It's the optimal place is probably not your wrist. So like right now, this is the best we can do for visible, but visible in the future won't be on your wrist. Like always visible. It's not ideal, right? I still have to look at it. Whereas always visible should just be improved.
Yeah, just like, would you be able to expand on what's happening with Uber and maybe like their battles with the states and how they're kind of like enveloping the whole industry? And I don't know if maybe people here are thinking about an application and want to create that provides a service that can maybe battle a big service, a big cog that's already in motion. And how do they go about dealing with battling people in the industry, but then also battling states or nation and how they're running things already?
I mean, so there's so many things that technology is changing. People generally like slower change, and so when it's accelerated, and technology helps accelerate a lot of change, when it's accelerated, it's dangerous. Just because people react to it, and same way that people react to product changes, and same way really react to any type of change. We get comfortable in a certain way, its livelihood, all this stuff. So with Uber, I mean, it's super simple why there's a reaction, right? It's change. And it's really fast and it's rampant, and everyone looks at it from the standpoint of they're just trying to make money. And when you centralize something like that, there is a lot of money at play, and whenever there's a lot of money at play, there's a lot of politics. There's a lot of politics, like, there's just a lot of stickiness that's happening in general. So Uber's experiencing that because of success. So in general, especially if you're changing something while being successful, like you're gonna get it. They've been obviously absolutely geniuses at executing, hiring a lot of people in the political space to be able to manage all those relationships, and it's worked out for them in a lot of instances. But every day you hear, like, Sao Paulo just voted yesterday for Uber, but like it's temporary, right? It's like that you resist it for a certain amount of time, and after a while, like everyone, politicians, get out of office, you guys come in, and it goes in. So it's a temporary thing. Like it's not going to be an issue in the future, but don't let something like that derail you in any way. Plus, it's also hard to get there. It's like champagne pop, right? If you have issues with like policy because you're making such a large impact to how people live their daily lives, like who knows what you're doing? It's super hard to get there.
Going back to like raising money, in terms of being an entrepreneur and you're ready to shift and you're looking for investment, at what point when raising money do you worry about like dilution of your stock, your interest in your company?
It's like it's not really something you should be worrying about, to be honest. It's normally a thing that people think about. Like, I mean, just to give you, as we were talking about Uber, just so you can like understand, it's like how much money do you really need? If it works, like you're good. Like you're good. To put it in context, a 25K investment, just 25K investment, not even like just like a bunch of people get 25K and they raise a bunch. In Uber is worth 140 million now, and that's with like less than a quarter of a percentage of the company. Right? It's a super tiny stuff. The founders' shares right now are there's two founders. They're worth 6.3 billion each. Like, they own like 10%. Actually, they own. It's my math's a little bit off. They own. It's around 13, 14%. So like these guys, it's like if you're doing good, like the last thing you have to worry. Like it's the concept is a what is it? What was that analogy? The pie, piece of pie. So it's a smaller piece of a larger pie. I always mess these up. What? Yeah. Exactly. I'm just gonna say yes. Anything else?
One more?
Yeah, this question. Yeah. When you talk about public reaction to change, what do you think about like workers' rights and all that kind of stuff? Like when I was in LA, friends were, I was talking to my Uber driver. Some of them are unhappy with their situation because rates went down, they introduced Uber Pool, so they're making less.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, what's
incentives were misaligned. It's generally temporarily misaligned. So, like a company like Uber has to make like the overarching decision of like, I want transportation to be accessible. I want like public transportation to be cleaner. I want you to be able to take a car in the form of public transportation. It's like all these like higher level things that they're trying to accomplish. And like pool is kind of like this amazing feature, right? You can share a ride, and it changes everything, right?
It's $5 too.
Yeah, it's epic, right? And so, but then what happens with that, right? You only have so much investment capital that you're already burning through. Like they're just burning through capital, these guys, because they know that eventually if they own the market, they're going to do well. So they're not really concerned about how much they spend or how much they lose. But they try their best to pay drivers as much. So like what you end up seeing is like one side is not happy temporarily, right? So with the Uber Pool example, it's a temporary thing until they hit mass market. Then everyone's happier because you're getting more rides. And actually, ultimately, if you picked up and dropped off 7 people, you could, if they make the math work, like make more. Their goal is always like how they pitch near to taxi drivers is just you make more on our platform. You know, they guarantee a certain amount. So their goal is to empower drivers. They're really smart people that are doing it. Right now, the industry is completely separated. It's totally fragmented, or at least it was. It's starting to get consolidated with Uber. But like you've already seen these like advancements now, and it brings it to light, right? When you have such a large corporation that has horrible PR in the past, it's kind of amazing now because anything that they do with their drivers will be publicized, right? And so as opposed to like Joe's like cab shaft or whatever, obviously it doesn't exist, but like if they change the policy for their drivers, like no one cares. That's not newsworthy. No one's paying attention to it. Where these guys like Travis is paying attention. He knows he's being scrutinized, so he knows he has to. He's a shark. I don't know if anyone's met this guy. So Travis is the CEO of Uber. He is a shark. I know like very few people like Travis. I had a dinner with him about 2 years ago in London. It was me, him, and 2 girls. And I talk a lot. See this? Yeah. I got 2 sentences out. I took the entire meal. There's the 4 of us at one table, and he's an animal. Man, it's like I would never, like you're talking about, I would never compete with Travis. Like in a million years, like he would just bite my head off. I have a big head. Not a problem for him. Very intense. I don't know if that answers your question. Cool.
All right. Well, thanks.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
I know I told you guys not to hire me, but that's it's just cool. But you guys can find me on, I don't know, my email is just Rameet@fueled. Super easy email. I typically respond within 24 hours.